New York is a city that has always wanted what it's not supposed to have. And during Prohibition, when the law tried to turn the country dry, the city just got thirstier. Bars didn't disappear, they slipped underground. Liquor didn't stop flowing. It just found darker, faster, more dangerous routes into the city. And nobody built a cleaner, bolder, or more legendary pipeline into New York's speakeasies than a quiet, stubborn, sea-worn mariner named William Frederick McCoy. The man drinkers on both sides of the law came to call the real McCoy. Long before he became a smuggler, McCoy wasn't a criminal at all. He wasn't a gangster, he wasn't a bootlegger, and he wasn't some street tough looking for a score. He was a licensed boat builder and commercial captain, born in upstate New York and raised in a family that knew water the way other people know city streets. By the time he reached adulthood, McCoy and his brother were running an honest business out of Florida, ferrying cargo and passengers up and down the coast. They built boats, repaired them, chartered them. Nothing glamorous, nothing illegal, just straight maritime work built on skill and sweat. Then came January 1920, the Volstead Act, the beginning of Prohibition, and overnight, the world McCoy knew cracked wide open. The United States told its people they could no longer legally buy a drink, but New York wasn't about to listen. The city that never sleeps wasn't going to suddenly sit sober, and McCoy saw what so many others saw, a national law written with good intentions but enforced with chaos. A law that created not just opportunity, but a vacuum, a gap wide enough for entire criminal empires to grow. McCoy didn't become a smuggler out of anger or desperation. He became one because he saw simple, clean economics. Liquor overseas was legal, cheap, plentiful, high quality, and Americans would now pay a small fortune to get their hands on it. And while every gangster in New York fought for control of the streets, the docks, the trucks, and the speakeasies, there was one route none of them controlled: the open ocean. It was the one place where a man with a fast schooner, a sharp mind, and a stubborn streak could become rich without answering to anybody. McCoy didn't ease into crime. He pivoted like a knife. One week he was moving legal freight. The next he was steering south toward the Bahamas, filling a ship with crates of real scotch, real rum, real gin, bottles that had never been touched, diluted, or doctored. McCoy didn't sell poison. He didn't sell rot gut. He didn't sell the homemade swill that blinded people in tenement rooms. He sold the same liquor New York had been drinking legally just months before, and that alone made him a legend. From the beginning, McCoy held himself to one rule: he would never bribe an official, not a customs officer, not a police chief, not a Coast Guard sailor. He believed bribery made you weak, made you vulnerable, tied you to the wrong people. If the government wanted to stop him, they'd have to earn it. They'd have to catch him fair and square on the open water. And for a long time, nobody could. McCoy became one of the architects of what the papers started calling Rum Row, a loose, floating chain of smuggling ships that anchored just outside United States territorial waters, 3 miles offshore, later 12, where American law couldn't reach them. Dozens of ships lined the coast from New England to New Jersey, sitting quietly in international waters like a black market grocery store at sea. Fast, nimble boats manned by American smugglers darted out at night, loaded up crates, and blasted back to shore before patrol cutters could catch them. And right in the middle of that floating marketplace sat McCoy, operating with the calm confidence of a man who knew the water better than any lawman alive. Unlike most bootleggers, McCoy wasn't tied to any New York crime family. He didn't work for the Bronx crews. He wasn't paying percentages to Dutch Schultz. He wasn't answering to Arnold Rothstein. He moved independently, and because he sold pure liquor, demand only grew. Bartenders in Manhattan whispered that they trusted the real McCoy more than their own distributors. Speakeasy owners bragged when they got shipments suspected to be his. And even federal agents quietly admitted he was more skilled, more disciplined, and more honorable than the violent gangs tearing each other apart on land. That independence made him famous, but it also made him a trophy. By 1923, the U.S. Coast Guard had restructured itself into a Prohibition-era strike force. Bigger ships, better coordination, and a mandate to shut down Rum Row once and for all. They didn't care about the small-time smugglers. They wanted the suppliers, the wholesalers, the men bringing liquor by the ton, and at the top of that list sat McCoy. The moment that ended his first career as a rum runner began off the coast of New Jersey. The Coast Guard spotted his schooner, the Tomoka, loaded with illegal liquor and sitting just outside territorial waters. The cutters ordered him to stop. McCoy didn't. He threw up full sail and tried to outrun them, something he had done more than once before. But this time the Coast Guard was prepared. When warning rifle shots didn't stop him, they trained a deck gun on his rigging and fired. The blast shredded canvas, splintered wood, and brought his escape to an end. McCoy surrendered calmly. He didn't beg, didn't argue, didn't claim innocence. He told the Coast Guard they had finally caught him fair and square. He was brought to court, charged with violating the Volstead Act, and sentenced to 9 months in a federal jail. Not a life-ruining sentence, but enough to signal that the government had made an example out of him. When he walked out of prison, McCoy did something almost nobody expected. He quit. He didn't go back to Rum Row, didn't rebuild the Tomoka's operation, didn't slip back into the game he had dominated. He looked around and saw that Prohibition had changed while he was gone. Organized crime syndicates controlled most of the booze now. Bribery ran the system. Violence ruled the docks. The clean, wild sea piracy he'd once practiced was being replaced by rackets, corruption, and bloodshed. And McCoy wanted no part of that world. He returned to what he had always been before the liquor: a boat builder, a craftsman, a man who worked with his hands rather than guns or bribes. He designed boats, repaired engines, lived quietly, telling stories only when asked, and even then, never bragging, never boasting. He kept his dignity the same way he had kept his liquor, clean. The myth of the real McCoy grew long after he stepped away from the game. People in New York bars told stories about the man who brought them real scotch when the government said they couldn't have it. Sailors repeated the tale of the smuggler who refused to bribe anyone. Coast Guard veterans told younger recruits about the captain they had to fire a cannon at just to slow down. And drinkers everywhere repeated the phrase, "the real McCoy," whenever they wanted to say something was authentic, untouched, exactly what it claimed to be. McCoy wasn't a gangster. He wasn't a killer. He wasn't a corrupt official switching sides. He was something rarer in a time of chaos. A man who chose his own rules, followed them to the end, and paid the price without bending. New York filled with poisoned drinks, rigged politics, violent syndicates, and corrupt agents. There was something almost noble about the quiet captain who ran liquor with the precision of a craftsman and the conscience of a man who believed the law was wrong. History remembers many criminals from Prohibition, but very few legends, and even fewer who walked away from the game with their honor intact. William Big Bill McCoy was one of them, the smuggler who changed the way New York drank, the captain who outran the law until the law brought out the big guns, and the man whose name still means exactly what he always promised: the real McCoy.